The holiday season is the perfect time to indulge on special recipes like lobster and prime ribs. So today we are going to make my favorite creamy lobster macaroni and cheese. It's really simple. It comes out of my macaroni and cheese cookbook, and I'm going to show you how to put it together. Join me inside. So after more than 8 years of holding the #1 spot on Google for baked macaroni and cheese, I have learned all the tricks and I have made tons of variations on my original recipe, and one of those is this lobster mac and cheese that is probably my favorite thing ever. So let me show you what you have to do to put this together. Now, we're going to start with 3 tablespoons of butter. We're going to put that in our pan. We're gonna let this start to melt. We're gonna make a roux. This macaroni and cheese doesn't use any eggs or Velveeta or anything like that. And it is simple to do, you just have to pay attention to it, okay? So we're gonna melt this butter down. And you don't wanna do this over super high heat because you can burn your butter. So just medium heat. We'll get it started here. While that's melting, I will let you know that this recipe comes from my baked macaroni and cheese cookbook that's available over on Feast and Farm in the country store. So if you go to the top of the website, you'll find the link to that, and you can find the book over there. It's in a digital format, but you can print it out if you want to, or just choose the recipes out of it that work for you. It's absolutely fabulous, so I hope you'll check that out. So we'll get this melted, and then we're gonna put in 3 tablespoons of flour. If you're gluten-free or on a special diet, leave me a comment and let me know, and I can absolutely help you with that. Gluten-free flour works great here. I have used King Arthur's 1-to-1, I have used Better Batter flour, all kinds of them. So if you need a different one, just let me know. And so we're gonna work this flour into the butter. We're gonna make this roux, this base thickener. So stir it around until you don't see any pockets of flour anywhere, okay? Very important. We want to cook out the raw flour. So just give it a little bit of a stir here. For people who are new to a homemade macaroni and cheese, sometimes they say that this recipe feels a little bit bland, but that's not your fault. That's because your taste buds have been doctored and tailored by science to only like what's in that blue box. So when you make this, make sure you season it, taste it often, and get it seasoned in a way that you enjoy it, and you'll find it to be really, really delicious. All right, so the flour is all cooked in. And we've got 2 cups of milk here. This is 2%, but you can use whole milk. Some people like a little bit of half and half or heavy cream in here. That's a little rich for me. So I just stick with regular 2%. Don't use skim milk. And I have had some people who've used almond milk in this. You can try it if you want to. Not the same thing though. All right, so this is very, very important. Pay attention to the fact that you must stand here and stir the whole time. This is gonna take 6 to 8 minutes or so over a medium heat to thicken. That's what we're going for. If you put this whisk down and walk off, and you turn on a TV show or you go check your phone, if this sauce overheats, even if it doesn't come to a boil, it can overheat and it'll split and look like little granular, almost like tiny scrambled eggs, even though there's no eggs in it. So make sure that you just stand here and stir, okay? And I'm gonna put a little bit of salt in this. Dairy in and of itself is very bland, so you're gonna have to salt. Now, the recipe will call for, you know, half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of salt. I don't really measure, sometimes I just do it. Okay, so we'll start there. And I'm always using a good sea salt. It's very important that your salt be a good quality. Table salt just doesn't have any natural minerals in it, and the flavor of it, believe it or not, is kind of metallic. So it would be great to transition your salt over if you haven't done that. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this on medium heat. I'll be back with you in about 6 minutes or so, and I'll show you what to do next. All right, so it's been about 5 minutes or so, and I'm ready to add the next step. Now, how do you know when this sauce is ready? If you notice when I stir, you get little glimpses of the bottom of the pan. You'll just see little flashes of it as you stir with your spatula. That's a good sign that it's ready, and you can also check it by pulling up your spatula and running your finger through it, and if that sauce holds a line, then you know that it's thick enough. All right. So I'm gonna actually go ahead and just leave the heat off for the rest of this, and we're gonna go ahead and put in some of our additional flavorings. So I'm gonna do a couple of teaspoons of red wine vinegar. That's a really nice balancing acid into all of this richness and fat. So red or white wine both work fine here. You can use whichever one suits you. And we're gonna put in a little bit of pepper. If my spatula doesn't fall in the pan, that would be awesome. Okay, so just a little pepper. We're going to do a whole tablespoon of Old Bay seasoning. So if you're not familiar with Old Bay, you can find this in your spice section. It's what we use in crab boils and that sort of thing in the South. It's a lovely flavor. So stir that in. We're gonna do just a little bit of parsley. So this is really just for color more than anything else. And you can put this in the topping if you want to, instead of inside the sauce. Okay. Then we're going in with our cheeses. Now, cheese and seafood. Everybody debates about whether that should be a thing, but as long as you're using the right ones, I think it works great. We have 3/4 cup of real Parmesan or Parmigiano Reggiano and about 3/4 cup of Swiss cheese here. Now, I can't always get Swiss in a block in my store, so I go by the deli and have them just slice me a few slices. Don't buy pre-shredded cheese. Pre-shredded cheese is covered in powdered cellulose, which is not a problem for some people, but it can cause your sauce to seize and to end up really gloppy and gluey and strangely thick. So we want to avoid that. Then once this cheese melts in, we're going to do that first, and then we're going to talk about our lobster. So I did not cook a lobster all the way through. You can do that if you want to. There are also great options at your grocery store for pre-cooked lobster tails that you can bring home and cut apart. But my favorite is actually a Langostino lobster tail. That's what these things are. They're little bitty, delicate, smaller versions of a lobster. And it's a little bit more tender. Sometimes people complain that lobster is a little bit, you know, chewy. These are not so much. They have more of the texture of a shrimp in a lot of ways, but the flavor of a lobster. And I have 1.5 cups or about 10 ounces or so of Langostino lobster. I actually buy mine at Costco. So if you are in that area and want to pick some up, that's a great thing to get. I like to keep these in the freezer and they're just really handy for lots of recipes. But you can use any kind of lobster and you could substitute shrimp into this if you wanted to. So in goes our lobster. This is already pre-cooked, so it really just needs to heat up. You don't want to just cook it to death and have it end up being really tough. So lobster goes in, give that a little stir. And then we're going to put our pasta in. So I have 1.5 cups of, this is Celentani, but you can use any pasta that you choose. I always make sure I measure it before I cook it, right? So in this case with these giant ones, sometimes I go closer to 2 cups in order to have enough, but make sure you measure it dry and then boil it, okay? So we're going to put that in. Oh, it smells like a special treat for sure. Can you see all this cheese? Oh boy, look at that. That's beautiful. All right, so we're gonna get this all worked in. And then a topping on this is up to you. If you don't wanna put anything on it, you don't have to. I'm gonna do a little bit of a breadcrumb simple topping on this, but you can certainly leave it just like this. And I'm gonna put it under the broiler. You can actually just eat this, it's ready to go right now. So if you wanna keep it super, super creamy, you don't have to bake it at all. But I'm gonna stick mine under the broiler for just a second. I'm just working in the cheese sauce, making sure everybody gets covered. Can you hear that? That is the sound of something really rich and creamy. Okay, now the next thing I'm gonna do before I put this in the oven is I'm actually going to taste this, because everybody who says their macaroni and cheese is bland, it's just because you need a little more salt. So let's see how it is. Oh, it's good. The Old Bay seasoning is gonna add a little bit of a salty kick, so you may wanna adjust it at the end, just wait and see. All right, breadcrumbs. So these are homemade ones that I keep in my freezer all the time, but I'm just gonna put a few of these across the top, just for a little bit of crunch and texture. And then if you wanna bake it, it goes into a 375 to 400 degree oven for 20 or so minutes. If you don't wanna bake it and you wanna keep it really creamy, just stick it under the broiler for 5 minutes or so. Keep a really good close eye on it and it'll be ready to go. So I'm gonna stick mine in the broiler and I'll be back to show you in just a second. Our macaroni and cheese is out of the broiler. It just took about 5 minutes or so to get the top nice and golden brown. And I realized I forgot to put my nutmeg in. So I'm gonna grate just a little bit over the top. Nutmeg is a spice that makes cream sauces just taste a little richer, a little more special. So I'm gonna use my zester here. You can buy it pre-grated, but this is always better. So just a little bit. It just looks like a little nut. And the flavor is really nice. If you don't have it, it can be optional. Don't worry about it. But we really like it. Okay, so that's it. Now, this is so good, you guys. Okay, look. Look at that. Oh, man. Okay, let's see if we can get it on the plate. This is absolutely one of our favorites. I'll leave you a link to the cookbook in the description box below, and I will write out the recipe ingredients for you so you can have those as well. If you've liked this video, don't forget to subscribe here on Feast and Farm, and you can watch another video right up here. See you next time, guys. Bye.